talk sports, but we came here to win. The most legit podcast, that's why we know you're tuning in. We cover the biggest news, we underdogs, but we can't lose. So trust the process, yes you, cause we got Khris and Anshu to bless you. With the best features, best stories, we diving deep like a Lambo leap. Wake up kid and stop snoring, we on point just like this beat. Bring the passion like the dog pound. In the cold, get a gold brown. Sit back and raise the cat, cause we starting this show like right now.
Everybody, welcome to this week's episode of The Underdog. I'm Chris Horwedel, joined by Anshu Kana.
Chris Horwedel? I don't know how to respond to that. I'm rattled right now after that intro.
I try to shake people up at the top of the show so we get their most organic reactions and not just some canned nonsense.
Well, mission accomplished.
So on this week's episode of the show, we are now 9-10 games into the NBA season, and I thought it would be a fun time for us to overreact to what we're seeing so far.
Oh.
And so I put together a little list of stuff. I'm going to call it Let's Overreact NBA Eastern Conference Edition. And let's look at some of the stuff that's going on, and I want your thoughts on, will it keep up? Is this a mirage? What's going on? And I've got a little something for every team in the East.
Wow.
Can't wait to get to can't wait. You know what? I'm going to go good team, bad team, because I feel like this is going to be a little more boring if we just go from the top to the bottom here.
Okay.
So let's start with the Boston Celtics. The Celtics are 8-1. Anshu Kana, does this mean they're the best team in the Eastern Conference?
I would say no, but, and especially when you take into account Gordon Hayward's injury for the next few weeks and, just the fact that I think they've gotten out to a pretty hot start, generally speaking. But, I mean, they've done this with, Jaylen Brown's been hurt and missed some games. And, it's impressive. We talked a lot about Kemba Walker being an absolutely perfect fit. And I think that record, if nothing else, shows that Kemba from Kyrie, to me, is an upgrade. I mean, I know that losing Horford, that's not a good thing in any case. But, I do think that this is a very solid reflection on that Kemba move.
Absolutely. Kemba averaging 25 and 4.6 assists. Jaylen Brown, you mentioned he missed a couple of games. Through those 6 games, he's averaging 19.8 points and 7.2 assists. Is he a legitimate candidate for most improved player?
I think he has to be, and especially because his usage should tick up with Gordon Hayward out. And I just think that people forget how raw he was coming into the NBA and how quickly he was counted on for them and immediately created some value. Now he got overshadowed a little bit by the Haywards, the Kyries, and obviously, Jason Tatum. But I think that this is a real chance for him to, kind of spread his scoring wings a little bit as he's in year 3 of the Brad Stevens experience. So I think it's a good thing for him, and he's got a shot at it for sure.
How big is the Gordon Hayward injury for this team? Out 6 weeks after hand surgery, averaging 18.9 points, 7.1 rebounds, and 4.1 assists, and kind of that bounce back season we were hoping for from Gordon.
For sure. I think it's huge. This is a team that I don't think realistically has championship aspirations, at least not as presently constructed. But, they need to be a high seed. Or low seed, I guess, however you want to say it. They need to be the 1 or 2 to have any chance at making a run to the playoffs, regardless of who they were to add at the deadline. So they need these. And I think that losing a guy like Hayward, who, to your point, he just looked so much better, especially starting with that Cavs game. I don't know if you caught any of that, but he just exploded in that game. And it felt like it was carrying over. And this is a setback for sure, but at least I guess it's his hand and not anything to do with his legs after that gruesome injury a few years ago.
Is this a team that could be in the market for a center at the deadline? Their starting center right now, I guess it's Daniel Tice on most nights, and he's only averaging 21.8 minutes a game.
Yeah, that's a problem. Daniel Tice is not the answer to any question that's worth answering. I think that's, he does have a little bit of, productivity. He's kind of reminds me of who is Kelly Olynyk in some ways, but he's obviously not quite the athlete. And, they were using kind of like a rotating situation there at center anyway. So I think that losing Hayward is a major dagger to this team. There's just not enough bodies. This was a team that was spoiled, I think, in terms of talent. Their 9th or 10th man was Marcus Smart at one point, or like Terry Rozier, and now they're looking at giving Daniel Tice serious starter minutes, and I don't know. I still respect the hell out of Brad Stevens, but I don't know how that's sustainable for a team that needs to be like a 1 or 2 seed to make a move.
Agreed. Let's jump down to the other end of this spectrum. The New York Knicks currently have the worst record in the Eastern Conference at 2-8. Anshu, are they the worst team in the East, and will they finish with the conference's worst record?
Those seem like loaded questions. I will say I thought there was no question in my mind that Charlotte would be the worst team, and they've impressed us, and we'll talk about that. But I mean, I still think the Knicks will climb out of it. I just think there are too many decently talented players on this team. Although the wreckage that is, the David Fizdale situation, and whoever's playing for them and who's complaining, it definitely is something they'll be looking at, or that will impact how they perform. But I just don't see them being a bottom 3 team in the East.
I am surprised by how this team appears to be in win now mode rather than let's develop our young guys mode, playing guys like Marcus Morris and Julius Randle 33 minutes a night, 34 minutes a night. And you have Kevin Knox and Mitchell Robinson. I know Robinson's had some injury things, but including a concussion, but 22.8 minutes and 17.6 minutes respectively.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is interesting. We talked about this too coming into the season. Like, what are they trying to do here? Like, the construction of the roster is so bizarre. And I mean, at some point, you got to think that some of those minutes you're talking about go to the players that will, in their mind, be there when they're good someday, hypothetically. But yeah, I mean, giving 26 minutes to Elfrid Payton to me is a non-starter. And, I mean, Bobby Portis, like, you kind of know what you've got there. I would rather be giving it, to guys like Mitchell Robinson, your point, assuming that he's, conditioned correctly.
Mitchell Robinson with a 30.82 per in limited minutes. Power sort of battle of the fallen Titans tonight with the Knicks up against the Chicago Bulls, 2 of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference. Who wins that game?
Where's that one at? I should know this. Is that...
I think it's at Chicago.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think Chicago's still better. I think that they've had, I don't want to say bad luck, but they're still good enough to overcome their imbecile of a coach. So I think that I still have to lean towards the Bulls there.
The Milwaukee Bucks are 7-3, tied for second in place in the East, but Khris Middleton's out for the next 3 to 4 weeks with a thigh injury. Can they keep pace?
Well, I mean, I think that this is a real chance for Philadelphia to kind of put a little bit of distance between the two of them. And I mean, it's interesting because when you look down the line at the standings, I mean, the top 2 teams, I don't know that they'll be there at the end. And Milwaukee, again, is a team, yes, they have probably maybe the best player probably the best player in the league. And so, I mean, I think, they're able to overcome, like, them needing to have a really good regular season record isn't quite as high as, for another team. But I find it difficult to imagine that they're able to, overcome the fact that Middleton being out. I mean, regular season helps, but this is going to be a tough hurdle to jump over for sure.
So Giannis is averaging 29.7 points, 14.3 rebounds, 1.6 blocks, 1.3 steals per game. Is he the heavy MVP favorite?
Yeah, you tell me. I think he is right now, but we're a fraction, 1/8 of the way through the season, not even. So, I mean, there's still time, but he definitely looks the part right now, no doubt about that.
And a sneaky little number here. He's shooting almost 4 threes a game and making 30%. You don't have to make a ton. You just need people to guard you.
Yeah, it's funny. That's a good follow-up to a conversation you and I had a couple weeks ago, which was like, at what point do you just mail it in and say, like, this guy's never going to be able to hit threes? But if he hits 1.5 per game, I mean, that's a huge difference. And more than anything, it just creates other stuff for him and for their offense if he's even a moderate threat from outside.
Absolutely. The Washington Wizards, Shukana, have been a mess, but Isaiah Thomas is now healthy again and putting up solid numbers while starting for a team, even if it is kind of on a minutes limit. Is Isaiah back, or is this just a bad player putting up good stats on a bad team?
Oh, man, I think you pretty much nailed it there at the end, a bad player. Yeah, I mean, this is a perfect place for a guy like him to get fat on some counting stats. I mean, the league doesn't value those quite as much as they used to, but, to your point, I mean, if you're scoring, double figures per game and he has the history that he does, maybe he slowly rebuilds his, his stock to the point where they can actually trade him. I mean, I think that he's still a useful like bench player on a playoff team. I just, he barely could scratch the court last year, and this is probably the worst team in basketball, so it's pretty tough to make too much of this performance so far.
So Bradley Beal just signed his extension a couple of weeks ago to remain with the Washington Wizards for another couple of years, averaging 26.1 points and 6.5 assists for this team. Do you think eventually this turns around, his attitude changes, and he asks for a trade rather than being mired in mediocrity for the next couple of seasons?
Oh man, that's a huge question because when you look across the landscape of the league, I mean, there are very few players that are in the position that Beal is. Like when we talk about deals, I think both of us probably immediately jump to either Love or probably Bradley Beal as far as like the best long-term trade asset. And so, the new front office seems totally committed to him, but at the same time is a wiser front office. So maybe there's something out there. But I've been surprised at NBA trades before, where I think I'm mostly blown away by the return in a negative way. Like I mean, I thought that Paul George would get more, and there were other guys, Kawhi, maybe, but he only had 1 year. But yeah, like I mean, trading for Beal to me it would be almost unprecedented given the amount of years left. I mean, I think you'd have to look at the Paul George trade as a precursor. The last,
yeah, I mean, look at Boogie Cousins when he was healthy in Sacramento, averaging like 25 and 15 or something crazy like that, shooting almost 40% from three on a lot of attempts, and he goes for a package headlined by a 38-year-old Buddy Hield.
Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, and Buddy Hield has been a little bit of a surprise, I would say. But at the time, when you think of the stock of what Hield was, like, yeah, I mean, and you could blame that on a bad front office, but the reality is, like, these spots have been. We haven't seen like the haymaker offer where you're like, oh my god, I can't believe that's how much they gave up, except for that Davis George package deal, I think.
Yeah. Well, that was the question I was going to ask you. When's the last time? And I'm not going to count sign-in trades here because bizarrely sign-in trades have yielded fairly decent returns, which seems counterintuitive. Golden State gets D'Angelo Russell coming off of an all-star season, and Philadelphia gets Josh Richardson for Jimmy Butler. But when's the last time a regular trade has happened for a superstar-level player and the return has been what you expected it to be? Even in hindsight.
The only one is the Davis George one. Like, I mean, I just can't think of one otherwise. Even Paul George the first time when he goes for Oladipo, yeah, hindsight is 2020, and now Oladipo, even with the injury, looks like a really nice find. But Indiana admitted that he exceeded all their expectations. So, and again, that was not a sign and trade, but it was kind of an expiring, wasn't it? Like, I mean, he had, I think, a year and a half left. So, yeah, I really can't think of one. Like, I mean, and a lot of times there are contracts built into this, so they kind of explain that as part of the reason. And yeah, like it just doesn't happen. So to bring it full circle, like I don't see Beal getting moved unless it's some kind of insane amount that we haven't seen.
Yeah, we're seeing this in baseball right now too, with the Mookie Betts situation. Rumors coming out that teams aren't willing to give up numerous elite prospects for Betts, knowing that they're going to have to pay him as well. Seems crazy to me. Seems crazy. Mookie Betts is so good. Give me Mookie Betts.
Betts and Lindor both. I mean, that is, it's a perfect, it's like a perfect parallel. Like those two guys, and they actually have 2 years left, 2 full years of top 10 players, top 7 bats probably in their prime, and neither team can get something that they want for them. That's crazy to me.
The Toronto Raptors are 7-3 as well. Can they keep up this hot start without Kyle Lowry in the lineup due to his injury?
Yeah, I doubt it. I mean, I'd have to look at the schedule. OG Anunoby has been awesome this year, and that's helped a lot. But Siakam's taken like a little mini step, I would say, but I just don't think that they're that good. Like, I just think ultimately attrition will wear them down. But, when you look at their roster, they've got more interesting pieces than the Celtics, I think. And that's after losing Kawhi, which I think is a real credit to Masai Ujiri and those guys. But, I mean, do you see them keeping pace as a fan of a team that's, heading up the East?
I struggle with this because I have this natural disdain for Pascal Siakam. I'm remiss to admit that Siakam is playing as well as he is this year. 26.3 points, almost 10 rebounds a game, almost 4 assists. But, he's turning the ball over a ton too. Mm-hmm. He's clearly in that learning stage of learning how to be an elite player, but he's playing really well. Siakam is exceeding my expectations for what he would be doing without Kawhi in the lineup. I thought maybe he would fail to live up to the expectations a little bit, being the main guy.
Agreed.
Looks great. Well, do they keep up the 3 seed? No, I don't think they keep up the 3 seed. I think Van Vliet is such a negative compared to Lowry defensively that's really going to hurt them. It does help to have Norman Powell and Serge Ibaka and Siakam and OG Anunoby, like you said. The interesting thing in Toronto for me is Marc Gasol is only playing 27.5 minutes a night, averaging 6.5 points and 6 rebounds.
Yeah, this is the first of many times I assume we'll be using this curse phrase, but is that a load management thing? Or is it,
I think that's he's an old thing.
Yeah, I mean, he's 35. He's 13 years older than OG Anunoby, which is just crazy. Yeah. Can you believe OG is 3 years younger than Siakam? Like, when did I miss that?
That is nuts. I would have guessed he was 24-ish if you just said how old is he. Yeah. But yeah, I mean this is a guy who's kind of like out of sight, out of mind for so long. I still cannot believe he was not traded to San Antonio in the Kawhi Leonard deal. He seems like exactly one of the players that San Antonio would have wanted.
Dude, Ujiri is a straight up criminal. Like, he is a thief when it comes to trades. Like, he is an incredible, evaluator of talent and clearly trade negotiator. And I think that, if the Knicks were to get him, which is the rumor, man, that's a sleeping giant, right? That's kind of similar to Andrew Friedman going to the Dodgers in my mind.
Yeah, I don't care for that idea.
I don't either.
Currently tied with the Orlando Magic for that number 5 pick, which I guess is an allusion to something that we haven't talked about yet since we're going out of order, but is the Chicago Bulls. Despite the reasonably talented roster, the team looks disjointed. Is there any chance Jim Boylan is fired before the end of the season?
One can dream, but I doubt it. I highly doubt it. They have just invested so much in him. I mean, barring yet another in a long series now of weird occurrences involving him, I just don't see it, unless it's just completely negative. I don't see them firing him. Like, they have staked their claim to him. And I feel like this is, I can't believe I'm even saying this, but I feel like this is kind of Garpax's last stand with Boylan. Because, you got to think if this one fails, they won't stick with those two guys after all this, right? How can you? If they went way out on a limb with Boylan, and he has just been a disaster for them.
Is there anyone on this Bulls team you've been impressed by?
Oh, I think Wendell Carter has been, he's ascended, maybe not statistically, although he's definitely
13 and 10.
Yeah, solid, rock solid. But I think that his presence has been, he feels like the oldest guy on the court, all the time. And I mean that in a really good, Horford-y way for a team that could absolutely use a presence like that. I think that he's been a really steadying influence on some of their other guys. And I mean, unfortunately, it hasn't manifested itself in wins for them. But I think also there might be a lot of good that comes out of losing a lot for this team.
Horford was obviously a very popular comp for Carter coming into the draft. So
but it holds up. I mean, if you watch them, it totally
ton of sense. You don't have to sell me. I've got Horford, and Carter is my guy.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Chicago's sitting at 5 right now? Sorry, what?
He's 20 years old. That's crazy to me.
It's crazy.
He plays like he's 40.
Yeah. Again, in a positive way.
Yeah.
Chicago's sitting with the number 5 pick in the draft right now. Let's just for fun, let's do a sim.
Oh, love it. 7.
I'll send a screenshot because it just seems so dumb and it seems so untrue. But on Tankathon, Chicago has dropped down to number 7 from 5. The
for the
picks
fourth
before that,
straight year, it would be, right?
Cole Anthony to the Knicks, absolutely. James Wiseman to the Warriors. Anthony Edwards to the Magic. RJ Hampton to the Grizzlies. LaMelo Ball to the Pelicans. I don't know how much sense that makes.
No.
Denny Avdija to the Washington Wizards. That means you are choosing from the likes of Theo Maledon, Tyrese Maxey, Jaden McDaniels, Nico Mannion, Scotty Lewis, etc. Who are you taking?
Oh, that would so happen to me because I don't like that group all that much. I need
I
to
love
watch
Nico Mannion. Not for you,
Nico
but I
Mannion.
love
Someone
Nico
I
Mannion.
have not watched him yet.
Oh, he's fun.
You know my feelings on Maxey. I'm very excited to see how this year goes with him because I'm not bullish on him. I'm bearish on Tyrese Maxey, but
Yeah.
I like that mix of. I mean, there are going to be some players. I think this draft, coming into this year, I thought it was kind of shallow, but you quickly rectified my thought process on that, and now I think that there will be a good player there. I have not watched any of Nico Mannion yet.
Well, the problem is he doesn't make sense for you unless you're saying Kobe White's a 2. Because you're not going to draft. You're not going to draft point guards with the number 7 pick 2 years in a row.
Yeah, and I really like Josh Green too, actually, but I have not
That's
seen
fair.
a lot of him yet at this level. But if he, that's the kind of fit I think that they need, like a true, although he's very similar in some ways to Zach LaVine, I think but I would like.
I
him.
don't think that's true at all.
No, what's wrong with
No.
that?
I don't think that's true at all. I think Josh Green, his upside as a defensive player exceeds anything Zach LaVine has ever been able to do.
Athletic, similar sized, and I think that Green could end up being a much better shooter too. Although LaVine's improved in that area substantially.
All right, let's take a quick break. We will be right back. Hey guys, it's Chris, and week 11 of the NFL season. Week 11, when did that happen? Means week 11 of the Sportsnet Challenge, brought to you by BetOnline. A little bit of a rough week for me last week in what was a strange week in the NFL. A lot of upsets, and I was not in front of those. By no means. Fear not, I will recover and I will ascend. Those in front of me are in danger. Huge time in sports right now. The NFL is going on, college football is going on, the NBA is going on, the NHL, college basketball. Kentucky lost today. Kentucky lost to Evansville. College basketball is amazing, and you're not going to want to miss any of the action. Visit our good friends and the exclusive partner at Podcast One, betonline.ag, to take advantage of the best bonuses in the business. Sign up for a free account and make sure you use that promo code PODCAST1 for your 50% sign-up bonus. Once again, that is betonline.ag. Don't forget the promo code. Don't do it. You're going to regret it. Podcast1, PODCASTONE, for your 50% sign-up bonus. BetOnline.ag, your online sportsbook experts. All right, Anshu, we're back. Let's talk about the Miami Heat. They've been fueled by a pair of rookies off the hot starts in Kendrick Nunn, who's averaging 16.6 points per game, and Tyler Herro, averaging 13.1 points per game. Screw you, Hero. Which of these rookies is most likely to keep producing at their similar level?
I mean, to me, it's clearly Harrow. He is you want to talk presence when I've only watched one game of the Heat, but he was in complete command, and it was interesting because it was even with Jimmy Butler on the court. I think that Harrow still has a certain, just a feel and a bounce for the game that totally fits in immediately, and I think that year at Kentucky really was a good thing for him, where he might have, otherwise gone to Wisconsin or one of those other schools. Like, to go to Kentucky specifically and learn to play with a different type of athlete, I think has served him very, very well as a rookie.
Instead of becoming Bronson Koenig.
Ouch, but fair. Or Decker, similar to Decker.
Fair enough. Orlando is 3-7, and as I mentioned before, tied for that number 5 pick in this year's draft with your Chicago Bulls. A playoff team last year. Are they going to figure things out and right the ship, or was last year an anomaly?
I mean, I think you have to think Aaron Gordon is going to figure it out a little bit. Like, this guy has just not been very good this year. Like, no. I mean, he's not playing quite as many minutes as I expected him to, and also just the efficiency is low for him. So I expect that to correct a little bit, more to the back of the basketball card at worst, if not better. Like, I mean, he's 24 years old. You expect him to ascend, not even plateau at this point. But so assuming that happens, I think that they'll slowly migrate up the standings. But I'm not sure this is a playoff team at this point.
Yeah, over the last 3 years, I think we all thought this was going to be a sort of a big breakout year for Gordon, finally. Over the last 3 years, Gordon's three-point shooting has gone from 28% to 33% to almost 35%, down to 27% this year. He just doesn't look like the same player. Give me your thoughts on the former number 1 overall pick, Markelle Fultz.
He's playing. I think that's an upside for him. He's starting for them a lot, and I mean, from what I've seen, he definitely looks a little tentative to me, but he's getting up a decent amount of shots. I think he's in the top 5 for them in shots per game. So, I don't think if you had told me how many threes I thought he'd attempt by this point, to average over 2 threes attempted per game would have been a shock to me. But this is a perfect team for him to be on. I mean, it's not like they're totally mailing it in, and at the same time, I think that he's probably contributed to several of these losses. I mean, he's just trying to get a feel back. But what have you seen relative to what you kind of expected or saw early on as a young Fultz watch?
So what I won't compare him to a young Fultz, because every time I think of a young Fultz, I go back to that summer league where he utterly dominated and shot the ball incredibly well from 3. But a young Fultz actually playing in games, meaningful games for Philadelphia, he's similar but better. He seems like he's a little bit more confident. The really poor body language that he showed in Philadelphia, where I think he was wildly uncomfortable with his own abilities and his own limitations, seem to largely be gone. They do creep up now and then. I've watched a lot of Magic games out of a morbid curiosity of what's going to happen with Fultz. The 3-point shooting is obviously still a problem. The form carries well, just like it did in Philadelphia, out to about 15 feet. After that, it gets a little shot putty. It's better than it was for sure. I won't argue that. But he's, in Philadelphia last year, shot 28.6% from 3, granted on very limited attempts. This year, that's down to 18.2%. But like you mentioned, he is taking over 2 threes a game. There's some encouragement there. The free throw shooting is up to 78%, though on very limited attempts. And that's a little bit interesting. I think that's kind of bad luck, because when you see low attempts from a guard who kind of attacks for a living, you think that he's being lazy and he's avoiding contact. Don't think that's really the case for Fultz. I think he's just not getting the respect that some of the older players get in terms of fouls at the basket. I think as he gets older and he plays a little bit more, those numbers are going to go up because refs are going to call more. So as long as these numbers can keep up, look, Orlando, it's encouraging. 10 points a game from Fultz at this point in 23 minutes is more than I would have expected. The 18% is probably about right, but
that's bad. 18% on over 2 threes attempted in a game. That'll come up, right? It has to.
I would think so. And the most important thing to me is he's taking the threes.
Yes.
I care about
that's
that way
Simmons
more,
lament, isn't it?
Very much so. I care about that significantly more than the fact that he's not shooting well, because somebody has to at least come out and put a hand up when he's there. And that opens up the rest of an offense.
Yeah.
With we'll talk about Simmons in a little bit, but yeah, no, Fultz, it's been encouraging. Is he ever going to be worthy of the number 1 pick in the draft? At this point, probably not. Fultz is a nice kid. I hope he figures it out. I've sort of come full circle on that, where before there was just so much frustration about wasting the assets and how that whole thing went down, that, I wanted to be proven right for selling low. But, look, he's a good kid. He works hard. I hope he does well. And I hope Orlando is forever below Philadelphia. That is all I ask.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is almost a perfect situation for him overall. Like, the amount that he's able to shoot on a somewhat competitive team. And he's playing with DJ Augustine. I think that's a good thing for him generally, just to be around like veteran players who have seen their careers turned around too. And yeah. I mean, I think that it's a good group for him to be around, even fail. And, they're going to stick with him even with the missed threes. Like, they have no reason not to, because if this guy's good in any way, then this season is almost a win for them despite the record.
So I guess the question I would ask about Orlando, I don't want to dwell on them too much here, is the lack of production from the point guard position the reason that they're underperforming?
Could be. I mean, look, despite Fultz's counting stats, I mean, he's been erratic straight up. Like, it's not going to get it done averaging that many turnovers per game. And, it's just not a really great duo, but it's worth the losses, again, to bank those losses. If you're getting something out of Fultz, if he's improving and getting those reps, then it's probably worth it for the losses, I think.
Yeah, Orlando sits at number 6 in the draft order right now. Seems like a team that, oh God, look, I don't like him. I could see where Tyrese Maxey might be useful to this team as a scoring guard. I think Nico Mannion would be spectacular. I am such I can't. I'm gonna gush about that guy for the rest of the season.
Love
I think LaMelo Ball makes no sense whatsoever. Obviously, Anthony Edwards or Cole Anthony would be great, but even RJ Hampton could make a little bit of sense as a combo guard next to Fultz. I'm not the biggest Fournier guy, but a lot of time to talk about that. Mm-hmm. Let's get to those Philadelphia 76ers. They've cooled a little bit after being the league's last unbeaten team. How much is the continued lack of willingness to shoot from Ben Simmons affecting this offense?
I will pretty much completely defer to you on that one, but I'm interested to see what you think is the biggest difference from when the hot start and maybe the subsequent losses.
Simmons was great in the game against Boston. He was great. He looked like he has taken the next step. He is a super duper star in the NBA now. Amazing. I think he got a little bit lucky. He's still with these like weird, delicate floater flip ups at the rim, these awkward half hooks, all seemingly off of the wrong foot. The offense, his offense is bad. He's a dunker. That is all he is at this point. Hasn't even attempted a jump shot over the last handful of games. Forget about having taken a three. And teams are getting back to the point where they were last year, where if you watch a smart team, they're giving him 15 feet at the top of the key and just packing in on whoever's down there, be it Horford, be it Tobias Harris, be it Joel Embiid, etc. Yeah, it's frustrating. Mm-hmm. Statistically, the team is still better with him on the court than they are without, and fairly by a significant margin.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the things that need to be fixed. I think they make a mistake, and I think they're starting to figure out that I think they envisioned that Josh Richardson was going to be the backup point guard full time whenever Simmons was off the court. Richardson is not great in that role. He can handle the ball reasonably well, but he's better as a secondary ball handler than a primary initiator. The thing that really hurts is Richardson is not a dribble three guy. He is a catch and shoot three 100% of the time. He needs to be a catch and shoot three guy or he's not going to make threes. And that is a large part of the reason he's had a slow start this season. It seems like they like what they're getting out of Howell Neto and Trey Burke over the last couple of games, so I hope that continues. I think a higher level backup point guard who can shoot and defend a little bit would be a guy I would look for at the deadline, but for now, just fix a couple of things, figure out the rotations. Brett Brown's always been weird. Beginning of the season, Matisse Thybulle was the top guy off the bench. Now he hasn't played really the last two games for whatever reason as Brett tinkers with lineups. So, it's still early. We'll figure out how things are eventually going to fall, but I think there's stuff to fix right now.
There's also some flukiness around, and to your point, I mean, they could use more of a floor general in their second unit, I think, and just you look at their turnover rate. I mean, they're the worst in basketball from that perspective. Yep. So that's just gotta get fixed. And I mean, I don't necessarily think that that's likely to stay the way that it is when you think of the veterans on this team, but not having like a true point guard at really any point of the game except for when Trey Burke is in, maybe. I mean, I think that's probably.
Oh no, it's Neto. It's Neto far more than
Neto.
Burke.
Yeah, Neto. Yeah. There you go. Well, yeah. I mean, it's just like if you look at, Simmons averaging 3.7 turnovers a game, Embiid's averaging 3.5, Richardson 2.9. That stuff, it's going to regress. Like that's just not who they are, and so I think that's probably behind some of their losses.
That may be who Simmons and Embiid are. Those are along career norms for those guys.
Seven combined turnovers a game for those two. That's pretty good.
I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would guess that their career averages are fairly similar.
Yeah, this would be a slight career high for Simmons. I have to look at Embiid's, but yeah.
Let's not worry about that right now. Yeah. We only have another 10 minutes or so. We got to get out of here, so we're going to keep these to about 2 minutes. After a promising start, the Atlanta Hawks have come back to earth and sit at 3-6 so far. However, Jabari Parker stepped up following the John Collins suspension, is averaging 17.6 points, good for second on the team. Is Jabari finally back?
He's back to playing, it seems like, but I'm not sure if he's back to being productive. I mean, look, 17 points is good. That's a very limited sample, but I think that playing with a guy like Trae Young, really for the first time in his career, a player that good, like obviously Giannis is a better player, but like when you think of Jabari being freed up to do more with a fast-paced guy like Trae Young, I think that it makes a lot of sense. And he's getting every opportunity, and I think that it does seem like he's making the most of it so far in a limited sample.
In Indiana, Victor Oladipo has just been assigned to the G League to up his practice workload, and Malcolm Brogdon has been a sensation for the Pacers, averaging 20.8 points per game, 8.9 assists, and 5.1 rebounds. Can he possibly keep up this level of play?
No, but it is going to be interesting to see him with Oladipo, because I think that first of all, he's got experience playing with a great player like Oladipo, and maybe he'll bring out certain parts of Oladipo's game that previously hadn't been able to be extracted. So I think that it's going to be really interesting. TJ Warren has been really good too. And Sabonis, we were all kind of thinking maybe this is a leap for him. He's been awesome this year as well. So I really like the core that they've got, and you wonder if adding Oladipo to the mix ends up hurting them in some ways. At least there will be some growing pains, you have to think.
The Detroit Pistons are currently outside the playoffs, and Andre Drummond has publicly stated that he'd like to play his entire career in Detroit. An impending free agent, assuming he opts out of his player contract. Is there any chance that happens?
I mean, they're going to have to fork over the money that the Charlotte Hornets didn't want to do with Kemba, but maybe. He's only 26 years old. I know we don't expect big men to sunset their careers in a positive way, but I mean, if you max up Andre Drummond, I think that he could still be useful at the end of that deal. So yeah, I mean, why not? Why not? I mean, how many people want to play in Detroit their whole career?
That's a fair point. The Cleveland Cavaliers are currently the number 7 seed in the East, thanks largely to the strong play of Colin Sexton and Kevin Love. Will the Cavs make the playoffs?
No, but I think that part of that is because you expect them to go on a little bit of a cold streak, and then you got to think that Kevin Love gets traded at some point. But so far, early returns on John Beilein team are pretty positive.
Aside from the fact that Darius Garland's been fairly unassertive on offense.
Yeah, and that's a little bit surprising to me, but maybe that's just, the over-assertiveness of Colin Sexton in the same backcourt. We wondered, and everyone kind of wondered how those two guys would play together, and so far it seems like Sexton is just totally taking control.
The Charlotte Hornets are good for what would be the number 9 seed in the Eastern Conference right now. Their leading scorer is backup point guard Devonte Graham, having something of a breakout year. Could Graham end up outscoring the otherwise inefficient Terry Rozier?
Absolutely. I mean, he's doing it now. And Kemba Walker was asked about the Hornets a few weeks ago, or whenever his farewell game was, or whatever, the tribute game. And he specifically mentioned Devonte Graham taking some of what Kemba had been like and trying to use, and that he had been sort of a mentor to Graham. And so I mean, I think that it's absolutely a possibility. And Graham never fully developed his full range of skills, I think, in college, and I think that this is a great opportunity for him to do it on basically a college team.
Yeah, he was on that weird backcourt in Kansas with Frank Mason, basically asked to play the shooting guard position. He's Devonte Graham's a good basketball player. The final thing we have, in Brooklyn, the Nets find themselves as the number 8 seed in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Kyrie Irving, averaging 30 points a game. Can Kyrie average over 30 for the season?
For sure he can, because everyone else on this team is just letting him chuck, and everyone just seems so afraid of him, on that team. And I mean, it makes a lot of sense that he would. This is his last chance to put up this many shots probably in his entire career, so he better enjoy it. And I mean, this team clearly has regressed, right? Like from what they were last year, even though they're winning a couple games here and there. The difference between Russell to Kyrie seems to be a downgrade.
That's true, but they have the elephant on the bench that is Kevin Durant that they did not have last year.
Good point. Very good point. Yeah, I mean, he's not coming back this year, right?
No, I don't think so. So I said Nets 8, the 8 seed in the playoffs right now. Some of the teams on the outs are like the Pistons and the Hornets, teams like that. Orlando. Does Brooklyn hold Atlanta? Does Brooklyn hold on to that 8 seed?
I think they probably do. I just when you look at their roster, I do think that they've got enough depth, and you assume that Cleveland will fall out, maybe Chicago rises, maybe Orlando rises, but I think that at the end of the day, I think Brooklyn's just good enough to stay in there.
I think Detroit with Blake jumps them. I think Orlando probably figures things out. I think Orlando and Detroit end up the last 2 teams in the playoffs. But
so Cleveland for sure, we think drops out.
Yeah, right? This is a small sample size anomaly. They're in the playoffs, but they're under 500.
Right. Yeah. Hey, if they're winning close to the same amount of games they're losing, that would be a great year for that. But
is it
a terrible year? For
yeah,
them. Yeah,
exactly. This is a team that it seems to me they so clearly need a guy. They need a James Wiseman or a Cole Anthony or an Anthony Edwards. They so clearly need a star.
Now, Sexton wants to be it for them for sure.
Rozier.
The second they trade Love, they're going to go in the tank big time.
I think for some reason I was talking about the Hornets. You were talking about the Cavs, and
yeah.
I don't know which one of us was right. Probably you, honestly. In any case, that is going to be our Eastern Conference overreaction show for the Underdog this week.
I thought it was fairly measured for the record. Didn't feel a lot of overreactions.
All right, Anshu, challenge accepted. When we come back to the Western Conference next week, it is going to be nothing but overreactions.
That's right. I want the hot takes, the hottest takes.
I will start putting together the Russell Westbrook MVP campaign right now.
Oh, my God.
For Anshu Khanna, I'm Chris Horwedel. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here later this week.